I've been waiting for something to happen.
15 seconds. Minus 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, T0.
On August 6th and August 9th of 1945, one of the greatest and most controversial decisions was made. This decision was to drop the atomic bombs, Little Boy and Fat Boy, on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The United States had ended the war in Germany, however they also needed to finalize World War II by ending their war with Japan. And also President Truman decided to drop the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima, killing 90,000 to 166,000 civilian people within the first 2 to 4 months of the bombing. This was due to terrible immediate effects and after effects of the atomic bomb. After the first bombing, we have offered Japan to surrender, however they did not. This caused the U.S. to drop a second atomic bomb on the city of Nagasaki, killing 60,000 to 80,000 people. After the bombing of Nagasaki, Japan surrendered and the Second World War was over. However, were all of those innocent lives and pain that the United States inflicted worth it? Or could the United States have ended the war in a different manner? This is one of the greatest debates of our country's history.
The United States ultimately decided to drop an atomic bomb. However, there were other alternatives to ending the war with Japan. One of the alternatives was to invade the Japanese mainland. This would cause less civilian death, and the U.S. had a military strategy. Yet more U.S. troops would have died, it would have cost more money, and Joseph Stalin might have helped the Japanese out. The second alternative was to do a continued airstrike, which would cause less unnecessary destruction, there would be no radiation, and the U.S. was good at it. However, it would take longer, use up gas and resources, and it would cost more money. The third alternative decision was a deserted island demonstration, where the United States would drop an atomic bomb on a deserted island. On the plus side, this would cause no death, it would scare enemies, and we would look powerful. On the downside, there would be not as big of an impact, and people might think we were bluffing. Also, other countries would know that we had an atomic bomb. A fourth alternative was a naval blockade that would cause less death, plus the U.S. had a good navy. However, this would take more time and it would target civilians. The last alternative to the dropping of the atomic bomb was to change the terms of the unconditional surrender with Japan. This would allow fewer deaths, it would be more peaceful, and there would be no loss of life on either side. On the other hand, Hirohito would still be in power and attack people. Civilians might still follow him and fight for him in a negative way, and we might plan for an attack later. All of these alternatives had many pros and cons.
The decision that President Harry Truman made to drop Little Boy and Fat Man on Hiroshima and Nagasaki is one of the most debated topics in our nation's history. The United States has been fighting World War II for years, and everyone was eager for an end to war in both Germany and Japan. However, along with some of the positives of dropping the atomic bomb, this huge decision had severe and devastating consequences. A positive effect of dropping the atomic bomb is that it obviously ultimately ended the war with Japan, causing them to surrender and therefore ending World War II. Using the atomic bomb also caused the world to see the results of it, and later in the century try to limit how many nuclear weapons each nation had. Despite the positive effects, there were also many negative outcomes. One is obviously the loss of civilian life in Japan, which is considered a war crime. Another negative consequence is during the war and after effects of burns and radiation that caused loss of life for many years after the actual bombing. The injuries that people suffered, an immediate result of the atomic bomb, are horrific and very disturbing to see and understand. The last negative effect is that when other nations saw what kind of weapon we had, they themselves started to create nuclear weapons, causing the arms race to begin. Overall, the decision to drop the atomic bomb has both positive and negative effects and will remain one of the most debatable ethical issues of all time.